Alright, so in this video we're going to light up a stogie. That's right, we're going to make it seem as though this cigar is lit, and it's got some smoke coming out from the end there. So the first thing I want to do is actually make it look like it's lit. And we'll do that simply by going into our toolbar and selecting a selection tool here. In this case we're going to use the elliptical marquee tool. With that selected, I'm going to drag a selection, not holding down any shift key or anything to constrain it, just dragging a loose selection, or a loose elliptical selection, right over the end of that cigar. And we'll zoom in here a little bit so we can get a better look at what's going on. Just like that. And I'm going to copy that selected area to its own layer by pressing Command or Control J. And there we can see there's that area. Now, I'm going to change this layer's blending mode to Vivid Light, and you will see that it will give me a much more intense effect there. But I want to intensify that even more. So I'm going to bring up my Levels dialog by pressing Command or Control L, or just go under the Image Adjustments menu to Levels. And here I'm going to take this highlight slider and push it a little bit more toward the center. You can see what's happening here is I'm getting a much lighter effect, but it's giving me that really red hot burning edge effect there. And that's pretty much what I'm looking for. I'm not paying attention to really what's going on over here because I'm going to mask that area out. I'm just really paying attention to what's going on right here. And that looks pretty good so far. So I hit OK. Now I'm going to create a layer mask on this layer by simply clicking on that layer mask icon. I'm going to go over here to the toolbar. I'm going to select my brush tool and making sure I'm painting with black because I'm going to mask out this area. And here I have a size 45 brush. Actually looks pretty good with a pretty soft, not too soft an edge, kind of a hard edge here. I'm just going to brush those areas out. Now if I want to soften the edge of that brush, I can simply hold down the Shift key and press my left bracket key. And when I do, watch what happens to this preview of the brush up here. You can actually see it getting a little softer. And let's go in here and brush out those areas there. I'm going to make that brush a little bit harder, as I did before, and just kind of brush out this area here. It's coming in a little bit like that. Now, I want to give kind of a more burnt edge along this side here as you would see it as the cigar is burning. So I'm going to create a new layer and fill that layer with a neutral 50% gray. I'm going to do that by pressing Shift Delete and use 50% gray, hit OK. Now I'm going to go into the blending mode menu here. I'm going to change this to hard light, and it will render that gray neutral. You can see it's still there. It's just not visible because this blending mode renders neutral gray neutral. So it's not visible. So using the burn tool here I'm going to select the burn tool, which is inside the burn, dodge, and sponge tool. Select that burn tool, and right on that layer, I'm just going to paint along the edge of that burnt area there. You can see what's happening. It's giving me a nice burnt edge, almost as if that cigar was really burning. Right along there. Now to finish that effect off a little bit, on that layer that's the burnt edge that we changed the blending mode on, I'm going to get the clone tool. I'm just going to hold down my Option key or my Alt key and sample the inside area right in here. And then just kind of paint that over here, just to give that a little bit more rough edge there, like it's really burning. And if I wanted to intensify that burning effect a little more, I can simply duplicate that layer. There you can see it gets a much more intense. So now that I've got the cigar lit, well, it needs to be having some smoke coming out from it, doesn't it? So to do that, I'm going to go and select the very top layer here, and then I'm going to create a new layer. Go over here and get my rectangular marquee tool this time. I'm just going to draw a box, a long narrow rectangle here, right above that cigar. I'm going to go over here and get my gradient tool. And if I go into this little arrow and go into the gradient picker, you can see we've got a number of preset gradients here. And I'm going to use this one right here. It's this copper colored one. Well, I'm not concerned about the color. I'm really just looking at it for the tonal range of gradients here. So with that selected, I'm going to hold down my Shift key and go from left to right inside this selection, just like that. Now, you can see it's got that copper color. I don't need that in color. So I'm simply going to remove the color information by pressing Shift Command U or Shift Control U, and we'll deselect. Then I will simply change this layer's blending mode to screen. That way only the white areas will show. You can see up against that area, we can only see those white highlighted areas. Now, I'm going to bring up my free transform on this particular shape, and I'm going to control or right click directly on that object and get my little menu here. We're going to go down to select warp. And I'm just going to grab the corner handles here and just manipulate this shape into what looks like very smooth flowing smoke effect. Almost as if you would see, if the cigar is just sitting there still, you'd see this really smooth stream of smoke coming up. Zoom out a little bit. We'll just kind of push this one over here. Right about like that. And we'll hit OK. So now we have a nice stream of smoke. Well, I want to give it some variation here, so I'm actually going to go ahead and create a mask. And painting with that brush tool, painting with black, I'm going to actually make it a softer brush. Remember how to do that, holding down the Shift key and hitting the right bracket. Actually, that will make it hard. Going the left bracket key will make it a softer brush. And we'll just kind of mask this area out down toward where the cigar is. And what I'm going to do, going back into the layers palette and reselecting the object layer itself, not the layer mask, but the layer itself, and we're going to get the smudge tool over here. You can see I've got some pretty harsh edges going on over here. So with that smudge tool selected and the strength set to about 50%, I'm actually going to make that brush a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to use it to kind of smooth out that edge there. I'm just brushing, I'm just clicking once and dragging that area just to kind of smooth it out. And give that smoke some variation there. Can even make that brush a little bit bigger and kind of push it overall just to kind of give some kind of a real organic feel to that smoke as it's kind of just rising up from that cigar there. But you can start to see the variations you can get, and you can certainly play with the liquify using the smudge tool, and of course using that warp tool to generate some very interesting effects right here inside Photoshop.